sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. This is a show where a stand-up comedian, in this case, local legend Virginia Jones, records with her sister, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and her name is Laura Ryan.
Hello, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but my main credit is sister to Priestess of the Punchline, Virginia Jones.
Laura, on this show, we take turns researching something that is interesting to us or something that's in the zeitgeist, time ghost.
Isn't it zeitgeist?
Yeah, but I'm doing it a little more German, zeitgeist.
Oh, I see.
On this show, one of us researches a topic we're interested in, and then they present it on the other one. Now, I have a little bit of a lead this week because although it is Laura's turn, we have done this topic before because we have done the show before, but I didn't record it. And I know you're going to say, oh, amongst ourselves, that sounds like it's more than two people. Well, it is. We have a very special guest. We have Lane Hicks joining us today. Good morning, Lane.
Hooray!
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
We've already established that this is going to be recorded. We're not just going to do this for fun.
Again, but for the first time.
It was a practice round.
Lane needed a little bit of a warm-up.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit about Lane. The topic this week is architecture and mental health. Lane Hicks is a skilled architect with extensive experience in architectural design and project coordination. She is a senior associate at Fuse Architecture Studio, and previously she worked at the University of Texas as a project coordinator architect for the Environmental Health and Safety Department. She has also had experience as a contract architect at Stephen Dalton Architects and as an architect at Roseling Nakamura Terada Architects. Lane has a Master's of Architecture degree from Texas Tech University, and previously she attended Tulane University. She is a commercial architect. We need to make that very clear. She does not do residential, and she wants everyone to know.
That's right.
You cannot hire her to build your house. She doesn't do that, but she might have opinions about it. Now, I never was friends with an archaearts person in college because they never left their studios. I would see them sometimes, ink-stained fingers, muttering to themselves, drinking coffee. It seems very intense. I was a fashion design person, and we worked hard, but not like you people.
Yes, college is intense for architects.
My undergrad was an English degree, so it really wasn't all that.
Just flipping her hair around, reading romantic poetry, looking into the wind.
The topic today, as many of our topics came from a TikTok, and it was a TikTok by Jason Pargin, where he was talking about how all the color has drained out of residential design and also commercial design. We started off with the picture from the Home Alone house, and now that house is completely white, and it's very sad. He referenced this article,
Millennial gray is the color trend an entire generation can't get enough of, or move over, sad beige. This is the hottest, slightly more depressing color scheme. It's an aesthetic that's all about color-drenching homes in every shade of gray imaginable, resulting in a fairly monochromatic space. And the reason it's called Millennial is because only people in their 30s subscribe to this decorating philosophy, or at least that's according to some younger TikTokers.
I think people are stepping away from this and moving to more of a 90s palette. I've seen forest green come back with a vengeance.
Yes.
And I'm grateful for that. But I feel like there's a lot of emotion lost. There's a lot of personality lost in the residential palette these days.
Yes, I have seen that as well. I think a lot of it comes from HGTV and the desire to have it not be too personalized so that the next person can move in and move out in a few years. So I think part of that is our culture of transientness, moving in an apartment or a place for a few years and then maybe leaving town, maybe upgrading, going somewhere else and wanting to have that space palatable to the next person.
Well, maybe we should start doing Tinder for home buyers, where if somebody, for example, wanted a space that was very cluttered and had tons of wallpaper and built-ins everywhere, I would match with that person because I've seen that before, specifically on TikTok. There are women who are single or childless, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to live in my Barbie dream world, and I want to move into a Barbie dream world.
we would call maximalist aesthetic, where there's just stuff on every surface and everything is brightly colored. And a neurodivergent person might feel a little bit overwhelmed, but excited to be there. The contrast is the minimalist aesthetic of black and white and gray that looks very calm, sometimes a little bit cold, museum-like.
So I'm going to read again from the Leslie Corona article. Others speculate that millennial gray is a manifestation of millennial angst. But one of the most plausible theories is that gray design features, from flooring to paint to case goods, were rampant on decorating shows of the late aughts because they were touted for being modern, fresh, and versatile. I think it's worth noting that gray has become the go-to choice for property flippers, often chosen for its neutrality and broad appeal to potential buyers. In my opinion, this gives a false impression that it is a successful palette to incorporate into your home. I don't feel that it's successful.
Do you want to live in a black and white movie
No.
or TV show?
If it is, It's a Wonderful Life, then yes. Otherwise, no.
Fair.
Now, if we're talking about current architectural color trends, if we look at the Pantone site, we're moving towards warm, earthy, and neutral tones, rich browns, Pantone's mousse chocolate, terracottas, and deep greens, to Laura's point, moving away from cool grays for a cozier feel, along pops of vibrant colors for optimism, with calming neutrals, bold color blocking, and near natural metal finishes. We are moving away from this kind of aesthetic, antiseptic aesthetic.
Wasn't the Pantone color for 2026 white, though?
Yes.
The Pantone color for
Sky
2026 is Sky Dancer. It's white. I think it signals that Pantone recognizes we are in the end times. It's the weirdest thing that's ever happened. Because this is supposed to be a color that motivates people to buy stuff. Nail polish will come out in the Pantone color of the year. It's a big marketing thing. Everyone wants clothes in the color of the year. Everyone has white.
I don't get it. I just moved into a new office and I was struggling because I enjoy color. The woman whose office it is doesn't. It's been tough. I hung up what I thought was a very neutral painting. She just wants everything to be white. I don't understand that because I don't want to live and work in a museum.
If it's all white, it seems fancy because there's no opportunity for clutter. There's no opportunity for any
Dust.
marks of a human being. Well, there was that Ab Fab episode where they go to a friend's party and she and her husband are doing a minimalist thing. They give her a bottle of wine and she has to hide it. You can't put anything down anywhere.
It needs something to contrast it. I think that's what makes architecture interesting is contrast, and spaces are interesting because of contrast, whether that's color, form.
White house with lots of molding.
That's not my aesthetic, but
It's white.
it is. It can be a background palette if you're intentional with the white.
White with molding is the neoclassical. We've gone back to that many times.
I hope she never listens to this podcast, but this woman has 2 canvases in the lobby and they're both painted white.
Oh, well, that's not interesting at all. Sky Dancer white.
I hope so.
White has some benefits for an interior space. It can look really bright. It can make a room look bigger, but too much white and you just feel like you're in the Apple void.
The Apple void or a hospital. I remember my ex-in-laws, that's what their house was like. It was Spartan and white. It looked like a museum. It smelled like a hospital because it smelled like everything had been dipped in bleach. There just wasn't anything in there. It was just
And your father-in-law used to like Lysol a lot.
Fun fact, he bathed with Lysol and bleach.
He had a feeling that if he bathed once a week, but he used Lysol and bleach, then he would stay clean the rest of the week.
He had OCD, and I don't think he only did it once a week. He also pulled all of his eyebrows out, which I found very interesting.
I've got Designing for the Mind, How Architecture Impacts Mental Health by Rene Janssen. Homes designed with minimalistic aesthetics, sharp lines, and predominantly gray or sterile interiors may lead to feelings of emptiness and detachment. These designs, while visually striking, can evoke sensations of being ungrounded, isolated, and disconnected from the natural world. Research has shown that overly abstract and impersonal spaces lack warmth and can result in lower emotional engagement, increasing stress and anxiety. Incorporating softer materials, natural textures, and more organic shapes can mitigate these effects and create spaces that promote psychological balance and comfort. I'm thinking about set design. That's the Severance world, this white, super office core world. The characters in it are totally ungrounded. They don't have a base to work from. When you see this in a movie or a television show, it does seem fancy. It seems elevated, but it can seem a little cold.
Sounds a lot like the sets in the movie Gattaca. Even the people are engineered. Everything's engineered. It's very sterile to the point where the main characters using fingernails from somebody else and dropping them in the keyboard. So he is not detected.
That's probably our future.
I hope not.
In Brave New World, that's savages. Savages are people who are made by sex.
When I think about sci-fi, a lot of it is white.
Clean, hard
Yeah.
surfaces.
But not warm and comforting and natural. That's what it is about Gattaca. That movie's about things being really super unnatural. So it makes sense that it would all be white.
I think white says a lot about it being space. Star Wars 2001, it's a white, sterile, scientific area.
It kind of reminds me of clean rooms, which is something that my
Sterile.
office my office works on. Yes, it's sterile. And you have to suit up in a white
Bunny suit.
Tyvek suit, a bunny suit, yes, to go into a white room, through a white airlock to work on high-tech, dust-free things.
Speaking of space, we're going to talk about scale. The Power of Scale, How Proportions Shape Human Experience by Camilla Ghisleni. Natural scale. Humans have predominantly horizontal fields of vision, which explains why smaller scales tend to feel more natural. Our visual angle ranges between 50 and 55 degrees, making it harder to relate to extremely tall structures or overly vast spaces. In contrast, lower buildings feel more intuitive and harmonious. Human scale in architecture affects both physical dimensions and sensory perception, creating a welcoming and psychologically positive impact. Spaces designed with human scale in mind encourage organic connections, ease of navigation, and a stronger sense of belonging. Additionally, they align with proportions found in nature and the human body, reinforcing a sense of familiarity and balance. This is why I hate McMansions. This is why I hate elevated. They're trying to make it fancy space. It doesn't feel warm. It doesn't feel inviting, and it doesn't feel comforting. I had a friend who is ending her relationship. She had previously been living in a gigantic, horrible house. And she's now moved into a 1960s ranch house. I was telling her how much I enjoyed being in the ranch house. And she said, well, didn't you like the other house? And I said, no, I've always hated it.
When you're looking to make a space, it's very cheap to go up because it doesn't cost you any additional acreage. Having really high vaulted ceilings, it looks fancy to us, but you're right. It can make the individual feel small. It can feel like you don't have a place to be. I know I haven't mentioned comedy yet this episode, which is very weird. It's better to perform in a room with a low ceiling. It creates a sense of community and safety. If you put people close together, they're more likely to laugh. If you move them far apart, they're less likely to laugh. If you put them in a room with a great big tall ceiling, they're less likely to laugh. And when it does, the laughter dissipates. That's why a lot of comedy clubs are in basements and stuff. The noise is reverberating and it gives everybody this cozy communal feeling where it's safe to laugh and express yourself and have a good time.
That's really interesting. I'd never heard that before.
I saw Kevin Hart before I knew how problematic he was at a large stadium, and it wasn't as fun. I was really far away from him. He was a tiny little speck. And you're right. The laughter doesn't stay in the room. It kind of flies around.
Yeah. You don't have that intimacy. I was just watching a comedy special on one of these comedy specials on Hulu, and it was in a theater where you typically see a play. And it did feel less intimate than watching Josh Johnson's YouTube shows, which is always in a comedy club. The sound is much better. It doesn't reverberate. I like that idea of the smaller space, the community, the audience size making a difference.
It's actually why Steve Martin quit stand-up comedy in the 70s, because he'd gotten so famous that he felt he had to be in these huge stadiums. He started wearing the white suit so he could be more visible when he was in a big space. He said he felt totally disconnected. He wasn't having fun. It wasn't a community feeling. He wasn't engaged in the same way. So he quit. Do you know that Gattaca is the letters of the DNA sequence?
No.
I've never watched the movie, but I know that about it.
I had diarrhea during the movie, so every time I think of it, I remember it was my birthday and I had the worst diarrhea at a movie theater and I run out.
Do all Jude Law films give me
diarrhea?
What if you got so firmly entrenched in your mind that anytime you saw Jude Law,
I had this reaction. I don't often think about Gattaca, but every time I do, I think, oh my God, half the movie I was in the bathroom.
Monumental scale. Monumental scale is significantly larger than human scale and primarily used in public buildings, religious structures, and memorials. Its imposing structure naturally makes users feel small and contained. Historically, monumental scale has served as a tool of power. Rulers, dictators, and religious authorities have used grand structures to mark victories, assert dominance, and even instill fear. However, as societal values evolve, monumental architecture has increasingly been repurposed to serve public needs, reinforcing accessibility, cultural identity, and collective belonging. This makes me think of churches in Europe. You're taking money away from peasants and serfs, and you're building something as a collective that none of them could ever build themselves. And it makes them feel like this entity, this religion, this God is bigger than me. This is bigger than myself that I feel connected to when I'm in this space. And that's why tourists visit churches today, because this is so beautiful and so grand, and I am so small.
Many of these Gothic churches, they are for sure out of proportion with human scale. A lot of them have like a tighter vestibule. Some of them do as you enter, and then you open it into this grand space. And, one thing I find kind of interesting, and I notice I do it too, in a lot of these spaces that are grand scale, I'm very tuned into where are the exits. I like to sit next to a column or an exit to feel that grounding. It can be intimidating and disorienting.
If you're just in the middle of a big echoing space, you would feel a little unmoored.
I remember going to a club in Miami called Space, and I thought it was outer space. They had a lot of outer space design. And then at 1 a.m., all the walls were on wheels and they rolled away. We were at this ginormous club full of people, and it was super weird.
Did they do this every night? What happened?
I guess that was the concept. It's space. At first, you felt like you're in this intimate little club, and then the walls roll away, and there's all these DJs and all this space. It was weird, but it was cool.
It's unique.
It was unique. It probably doesn't exist anymore because people don't have creativity.
Once the secret's out.
Yeah, imagine going for the second time and saying, baby, we can't leave yet. They haven't made the room big yet.
Yeah, because we were basically in a quarter of the whole building until midnight. I remember leaving the club space at 7 a.m. I had a conference that I was attending at 8 a.m. It was a great time. It's called being in your 20s.
Good choices all around.
Yes. All around. We're going to talk about my favorite scale, which is intimate scale. Intimate scale, on the other hand, is personal and inviting. A subcategory of human scale, it's designed to foster comfort, privacy, and a sense of retreat. Elements like ingle nook, a small seating nook near a fireplace, or a built-in window bench exemplify spaces that evoke this scale. The closeness of walls and reduced openness enhance feelings of coziness and security, making such areas ideal for reading, contemplation, or relaxation. Intimate scale is not only relevant in residential settings, also in commercial environments such as cozy restaurants and small cafes, where it creates a warm and welcoming atmosphere. I feel like American architecture is really missing intimate scale in most of our industrial buildings.
I've had the privilege to visit Paris, and I think about when you were mentioning cafes and restaurants, yes, those are much more intimate, lower ceilings, fewer tables. It's no Chili's.
Unfortunately for us, it's no Chili's.
Where the ceilings are higher, and they do have these copper pots with the light fixtures that would come and
bring the scale down.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to look too far to see that the ceiling is much higher than they're trying to make you think.
They're faking us out.
They are faking us out, which is better than nothing.
But how would the waiters walk around if that's where the ceiling was?
It would be challenging. One of my biggest beefs of living in America is the fact that everything is industrial and Spartan and white and open, has no personality. And it's just depressing.
Laura is attracted to living in a hobbit hole. She would be very happy in a tiny dugout space where everything was covered in beautiful, intricately decorated objects. And this feeds into the Netherlandish concept of hygge, of coziness. Don't make that face. Hygge. It's Danish. It's Hygge in Wikipedia. Americans often dream of bigger things, bigger spaces, and yet the World Happiness Report rank only 18th in national happiness, while Danes consistently rank in the top 3. They are crediting the coziness hygge as part of that, creating spaces that feel intimate, that are cozy,
that feel human.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about American ambition of manifest destiny,
colonizing.
Yes, colonization, literally taking up space. That's a very American cultural ideal. The Wall-E movie, the by and large, take up space. And
living in a Costco, living in a Walmart. I've particularly noticed it because there's a yuppie apartment complex near my work called Hygge. It's all around cozy blankets and baths, fireplaces and candles. But hygge activities have been known to produce feelings of love, warmth, and safety and increase oxytocin. Participating in hygge practices may contribute to an overall positive feeling of well-being. In the Broadway musical Frozen, there's a song called Hygge about being comfortable, happy, and together. When you think of IKEA, move towards this concept in little cozy things, little cute little things just to decorate your house and make it feel, to Laura's point, homey.
Then IKEA itself is a giant monster.
IKEA is monumental, but selling the concept of hygge.
Why are European city centers so much nicer than American ones? Let's read from Austin CLINK's article. European cities were built and designed well before the car was invented. Towns and markets needed to be connected via horse and walkable once inside, simply because there was no other popular mode of transportation. This makes places like Europe feel quaint, human, and livable. It creates a more natural cityscape that's suitable for interaction, exploration, and visitation. Trolleys, cable cars, and train stations were featured prominently in European city design before the rise of mass automobile ownership, which created a space and legacy for public transportation within and between cities that were already spaced much closer together.
We can see the effect of this in the United States. New York City was made for public transit, is an older city, and was laid out before cars were everywhere. It feels more European in that way, in that smallness and being used to living with people very densely populated, not having a ton of personal space, doing a lot of your crying on the subway. It's just a different lifestyle. Contrasting with California, there's a lot of that New York versus California thing, and New Yorkers would move to California and complain about it. The reason we have to have a car is we all have bigger houses with yards and pools and whatnot. I can't touch both sides of my bedroom with my hands. So if every individual has 500 square feet instead of 200 square feet, everything else gets bigger.
I don't like the way it looks. I hate New York, but for different reasons. I hate the strip malls. I hate how aging and crappy it looks. I hate how far apart everything is. It looks like trash to me, and I don't love it. Lane, you used to live in California. What's your take on that?
I agree, but I think it's not any different from Texas, where
I agree too. I would never visit here.
Car-centric culture, we get in our individual bubbles every day, multiple times a day, aka our vehicles, and we don't interact. We're crying alone, not communally on the subway.
You get to do it in your car the way God intended.
Yes.
I prefer crying on the subway.
There's more chance for interaction when we are riding public transportation, but I know in some of these places, I think people put up their own little personal bubble as well. We think the ideal is that dense city. I think there's also an argument for being a little bit spread out, especially if you're overstimulated.
There's a happy medium here.
There is, yeah.
But I do feel like when I'm in New Orleans or when I'm in New York, I feel better. I like being in a place that's walkable.
Yes.
I like being in a place. There's centers where I might physically bump into a person. When you think about what to do in Austin on a Saturday, it's which strip mall are we going to go buy things in? And it's gross.
When you build a city around people walking or riding horses, it feels more communal. Everybody's closer together. That was a strange thing about living in LA, that people would tell me that they felt more isolated. You're getting up at your house and you're alone. You're getting into your car alone. You can plan on meeting other people places. You're not going to be walking around in your neighborhood and just run into your neighbors. You might see the same barista every day, but it's harder to have those accidental meetings that are a very pleasurable part of human life.
And I wanted to add too, with walking outside or riding your horse, you are in touch with nature. You know what the weather is. You know the leaves are turning brown in the fall and they're bare in the winter and they get green in the spring, which I think is important to our mental health. It certainly is for me.
Because you're a human being, right?
I think so.
She looks like one.
She smells like one.
This article continues and says, Europe has retained its human scale. America is designed on an automobile scale and it grew rapidly along that axis instead. The saying goes, 100 miles is nothing in the USA, 100 years is nothing in Europe. And there's plenty of truth to that. This means European cities are more walkable, have vibrant urban markets, have accessible, affordable, and sensible public transit, have thriving cultural centers in downtown areas, and do not have as many overt signs of poverty in comparison to their American counterparts. It is very funny in Europe, you will talk to someone and they will talk about, oh, where are you from? My hometown is outside of London. And they'll talk about it like it's New Mexico. And then when you look on the map, it's 20 miles. Oh, you could go there anytime. They don't think of it that way because 20 miles is a long ways to them. I will go 20 miles to go to the grocery store that I like.
Yeah, I heard a TikTok where a European friend was visiting Texas. He said, I'm going to be in Texas this week to his friend who lived in El Paso. And he said, oh, I'm going to be in Dallas. And he said, I'm not going to see
nowhere
you
near
this
here,
week."
buddy.
It's not going to happen.
Even in America, my New Hampshire cousin, I think he was going to be in the Bay Area for work, and I was living in San Diego. The question was, well, isn't that near? Not so much.
I had a friend who told me she lived in San Francisco. She moved from Portland to San Francisco. And so every time I was doing comedy or like doing stuff in San Francisco, I'm like, we should meet up. We should meet up. Eventually she had to tell me, no, she lives in the Bay Area. What does that mean? And she lived in San Jose, which is very far.
Do you know the way to San Jose?
No, I don't. I never have. This is Architecture Trends Community-Centered Design. Community-centered or participatory design is an approach to the design process that prioritizes the active involvement and engagement of the community. It includes them in the design and planning processes of their built environment. Community-centered design benefits the social cohesion between members of the community. It has the power to shape social interactions, foster a sense of belonging, and strengthen social ties by creating spaces that encourage communal activities, gatherings, and shared experiences. It also supports the social infrastructure and further nurtures community connections. What we're talking about here is third spaces that are not home, that are not work. Starbucks for a while tried to create the third space, but if you quit drinking in this country, or if you have a specialty diet, it's so difficult to make plans with other people. If you're not eating or drinking something, then to Lane's point, you're like shopping.
Also, I have found this in various times in my life. When you're broke as hell, it's really hard to have friends.
How can we interact? How can we have a human connection and have a fun time without spending money? It's very difficult. And you have to get into board games or polyamory. Those are the only options.
Even bowling or going to the roller skating rink costs money.
It sure does. Lane, you're a commercial designer, as we've previously discussed.
Yes.
Do you find yourself trying to create places that shape social interaction? What is the goal when someone's building an office? Does anyone even think about this crap?
Yes, I think so. And I think more and more with trying to get people back in the office from COVID, some people do miss that social aspect of coming in the office and seeing your coworkers and collaborating. Sometimes for us, collaboration happens at each other's desks. It doesn't happen at the big conference table. You can certainly create spaces to support social interactions. I learned very early on, you can't force those interactions. It's not a cattle shoot. You know, people are going to...
You are from Texas.
Well, I remember when I was at Tulane, and one of our studio projects was a soup kitchen, and it was very specific in New Orleans. My design, my professor said that it's very directional. I created a walkway ramp for queuing up. It was very process oriented. Go point A, point B, point C, so on and so forth. And that's something that obviously stuck with me, that it's not a good idea to force people in architecture.
Some architecture is built that way. You're standing in a grocery store and you feel directed. The grocery store wants me to go this way. This is the path of least resistance. And so that I go past the produce and I go towards the middle of the store where all the really processed things are. You don't want it to overtly look like an abattoir.
Right.
You want to give the illusion
that people have choice.
Of choice. Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. And there's all kinds of marketing studies that they go one direction when they walk into a store. Merchandising tactics use our humanistic tendencies to
manipulate
sell
us
us more
to buy
stuff.
more crap.
Yes.
Speaking of third spaces, this is about Sweden. It seems like, oh, Virginia's just really into that part of the world. Swedish libraries are designed for communal activities. It's part of a broader trend where libraries function as community hubs. They'll not only have the books and music that other libraries have, also rent out video games, board games, musical instruments, tools, 3D printers, and recording studios, and gathering spaces, places where you can get together with your friends for free, do an activity, and have time with other people, because it does get cold and you can get isolated. They're looking for solutions on how to build more interactivity into people's lives.
I love that.
So, how does architecture affect mental health? It's no secret that our brain is the most important part of our body. And in recent decades, architects have been rethinking other places where humans spend their time, such as the workplace. We're starting to see more offices that encourage social interaction, movement, and a more relaxed environment overall. Not only do we have proof that design can have a positive impact on our mental health, but it also has been proven that poor design evokes negative reactions like anxiety, raised blood pressure, and increased risk of infection.
Wow.
Yikes.
I'm trying to think of an architectural space that has given me anxiety. Hospitals, I have to present myself in a room and offer someone my blood. That's very stressful. The design of hospitals is unfriendly and not intuitive.
The entrance to Six Flags is pretty stress invoking. It does do that cattle thing. You're all being pressed into this space and it's expansive and weird. And I hate it.
Got to bring up that other club, Costco. The first time I'd been in a Costco was in San Diego. It's probably a little bit smaller than the one that I go to in North Austin. It can be disorienting because it is so expansive. It's rows and rows of things.
High ceilings and bright lights.
It does. And big fans. The other day I was in there, felt kind of odd because the tall shelves that did not have things in them. I didn't realize how much that kind of anchored me because they didn't have product on the higher shelves. It felt very disorienting. It was something that I obviously noticed, or it did feel disorienting.
A friend of mine was telling me at a party that his Costco changed the orientation of all the shelvings because it's all modular. None of that is permanent. If you took everything out, Costco would look exactly like the nightclub that Laura went to in Miami. He said that they turned all of the shelves and moved the cash registers and the checkout stuff. The whole thing has just rotated. And I said, I would stop going. If I had known my Costco and then they changed it, the idea of it freaked me out.
It's actually scary. When I think about being in outer space, I'm terrified. The idea of floating in a void, I just can't. If there's a phobia for that, I probably have that.
The scene in movies where an astronaut gets thrown out into space and then someone finds them, it's the most ridiculous thing in art. That idea that in the infinite span of space, you could locate another human being in a time frame that would keep them alive makes me very angry. This is from the same Rene Janssen article. Studies by Evans and Weiner, 2007, have shown that urban slums and poorly ventilated offices contribute to psychological distress by creating a sense of restriction and a lack of personal space. A lack of natural light is another major concern. It has been linked to seasonal affective disorder, fatigue, and depression. Portland is all about this. Half of everybody I know has got a light that we're looking into for an hour a day to keep being alive. Research highlights that exposure to sunlight increases serotonin levels, improving mood and reducing depression.
I feel like we've gotten to this point where we're trying to outsmart nature and we're forgetting that we are literally hairless animals. There's nothing natural about me being right now in this box with air conditioning being ventilated in. It's just weird and it's not healthy and it's not good.
Will someone please dig Laura a hobbit hole?
There's a Hobbit village. It's an Airbnb and I plan to stay there.
I think I saw a wedding happen there.
I think it's in Southern California. In New Zealand, they have left all of the Hobbit set intact, so you can go visit that. But there's also a place in California where this guy has recreated a Hobbit village at his Airbnb.
Speaking about dirty urban landscapes being bad for you, Portland went through a hard time during COVID. So many of us did. Downtown Portland got very sketch, very grimy. And like a lot of cities, Portland has started a mural project to beautify downtown, to uplift the communities. Here we call it Art in the Paint. Richmond, Virginia has Project Color Core, which is an inner city mural project. Just the use of color and art and creativity can make you feel better and make you feel more connected to your community. We have a really nice mural that says Portland is what we make it.
I think it's great. And I think Austin, despite not having an official name for it that I know, I do see a lot of public art. There's this artist, I believe his name is Mike Johnson. He paints a lot of electrical bosses, and I see Dolly Parton when I'm on Koenig and other famous, important, awesome people.
There was a Mr. Rogers one there for a while.
Has 6th Street retained its Daniel Johnston frog?
It's not on 6th Street, Guadalupe.
Off Guadalupe.
Is it still on Guadalupe?
It's just a wall. They just left that part of the wall and the rest of the building's gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just a hi, how are you wall.
They didn't want to get rid of it, but they didn't want to keep that building either.
Well, Kurt Cobain wore that
Last-
t-shirt and now it's all over.
That's
Last
true.
time I knew, the restaurant was called Thai. How are you? Very clever.
Biophilic design is something that integrates natural elements into architectural spaces to foster psychological and physiological well-being. This concept is rooted in the idea that humans have an inherent connection to nature, as described by Edward O. Wilson in his book Biophilia. Studies have shown that incorporating greenery, water features, and natural materials reduces stress, enhances cognitive function, and improves mood. In residential spaces, biophilic design has been shown to reduce mental fatigue and anger outbursts while improving attention spans and reliability. Research also demonstrates that children with attention deficit experience significant improvements in focus when exposed to natural environments. For teenage girls, nearby vegetation can increase their self-discipline by up to 20%, reducing the risks of academic underachievement, juvenile delinquency, and teenage pregnancy.
Wow. The shorthand for this on TikTok is touch grass, and it's usually said in kind of a mean way.
You're making fun of my hobbit hole, but hobbits are people too. And also, this is where we come from. We are
Right.
from the earth. We lived in caves. We touched grass 23/7 a day, or maybe 21/7.
What do you think about the effect of greenery on architectural design and people inhabiting it?
I think I mentioned earlier the being outside effect. When I would go for walks, sometimes I'd say, I'm going to go look at some trees. But yeah, certainly it has that grounding effect. I think in architecture, you're seeing a lot of indoor-outdoor spaces, especially where the weather's great and you can be outdoors or even just be able to look at the outdoors. It's important. I know there have been studies with schools having access to a view and greenery improves things like test scores and being able to pay attention. Whereas I think, at least myself, I was brought up in a time where it was the cattle chute where they didn't want anybody to look out the window because it was distracting. Hopefully we're moving away from those more sterile environments to indoor-outdoor, bringing the outside in with wood, even if it's not natural wood. Even a veneer is so much better than a white melamine on your tabletop.
I had a funny little incident the other day. My dentist is in a yuppie office block. There is a water feature. It's really simple. It's a concrete rectangle and it has mesh in it. And then they run water down it. There's pebbles below. You can listen to it. I will sometimes spend a little too much time looking at the water feature before I go into my dentist appointment because it helps calm me down. And I'd rather be doing this than going to the dentist. The other day when I went to the dentist, they had turned off the water feature and they had taken out the wire mesh and they're planting vines in it, which I guess will be the same thing, but I was really sad.
Well, I think that's why we listen to the white noise, brown noise for some of us. When I imagine our ancestors living in caves, it was the ocean sounds, it was the winds, it wasn't these sudden car honks.
I like pink noise, but I don't know why. I don't know why that's my favorite. Maybe it's just because it says pink on it. Biophilic design also supports community well-being. Neighborhoods with good landscaping and abundant green spaces report lower crime rates and improved life quality. Large trees attract people outdoors, encouraging social interaction and fostering stronger community bonds. And ironically, when you have a beautiful outdoor space, it reduces crime because people are there. One of the problems during COVID is everybody went inside, and as soon as there's not people around, there's graffiti, property destruction to theft. If you create a nice space for people to be in, it will tend to stay nicer. And these mural projects, I know sometimes a thin line between mural and graffiti, it improves the city block. It's a nice place to exist and people are attracted to it.
There is something to be said about eyes on the street. And I just want to say, if anybody's interested in learning more about this kind of human-centric design and reducing crime, there's a book that came out in the 70s called A Pattern Language. And I think that was one of the key topics, eyes on the street, and there is less crime where humans are and interact, where there is community presence.
I think it's not just because I don't want to get caught. I think it's also because it's more calming to be around other people. I feel like people who are committing crimes probably aren't particularly happy.
If there's a broken window in a neighborhood, there'll be more crime, more broken windows, because it just feels like nobody cares about that space. Especially crimes where there's no benefit to the crime. You're just destroying something to feel like you have a place in the world, which I think is a lot of teenage crime tagging and stuff. I want to show someone I'm here. I want to call out my space.
From the same article, as we continue to evolve our understanding of mental health, it's essential to prioritize spaces that support human flourishing. The challenge for architects, planners, and policymakers is clear: to create environments that heal, inspire, and connect us to one another and to ourselves. I think we have very old brains. Our old brains don't feel good in white, boxy spaces with no windows. I remember my first office was in a strip mall. I didn't have any windows. I remember feeling so trapped in that office. I didn't know what time it was. I didn't know what was going on outside. It just felt very strange. And I remember I worked in a rehab for a while. They also had no windows because it was set up as a nursing home and they didn't want the patients to know what time of day it was. I guess because they didn't want them to be anxious about time passing. It was very weird because I would work 9 to 8, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I never knew what time it was or where I was. I didn't have any orientation to reality, which was challenging.
A thing that is weird about airplanes, even though you have a window, it doesn't mean anything. You're in the sky. If it's day, it's light. If it's night, it's dark. They use all of the colored lighting to try to manipulate you, especially when you're doing an overseas flight. They feed you and then they turn all the lights down in the cabin to make you feel like it's nighttime, even though it might be 3 p.m. Let's get these people asleep so they don't bother us for most of the flight. And then when you're about to land, they turn the lights up and it's like a dawn color. And they wake you up and they feed you and they go, now it's morning. It has nothing to do with morning. Because we are little hairless animals, as Laura so poetically put it, we are manipulatable by color cues, light cues, and fake nature.
You know, I never thought about the plane and the lighting. There is a lot of discussion about color temperature with lighting, especially as we've moved from fluorescent, which I don't think anybody liked because it was a very bright white. As we're moving from those incandescent and fluorescent to LED, we have the ability with that LED technology to manipulate the color temperature and to mimic the colors outside. It's difficult to do a perfect match, but I think in some ways, for me, I'm not tricked by the pretend nighttime on the plane. Like Laura said, we're not necessarily intended to sit at a desk for 9 hours plus.
Right.
Our minds do need that mental break and that connection to nature.
I find myself back in a strip mall and my current office doesn't have an actual window, but it has a fake window. I put curtains on the window that are kind of see-through, and I bought these grow lights that I put on either side of the window so it looks like natural light.
It's a real window. It's just that it faces an interior surface. It doesn't go to the outside.
So that to me makes it a fake window.
This is an article called How Urban Design Can Impact Mental Health and Well-Being by Agnieszka Guisto. Urban environments often disconnect residents from nature, which is deeply rooted in our evolutionary history. Humans have evolved in natural environments, and the lack of green spaces and natural ecosystems in cities can lead to residents developing what is referred to as nature deficit disorder. Urban residents lack access to nature's psychological benefits, such as reduced stress, improved mood, and enhanced cognitive function. Research on anxiety disorders, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, distress, anger, and paranoia, and the risk for developing schizophrenia showed higher rates in urban versus rural areas. In fact, epidemiological studies concluded that the more time spent in an urban environment as a child, the higher the risk for developing schizophrenia as an adult. Oh, that's interesting.
From the same article, design public spaces that encourage social interaction and community engagement, such as walkable neighborhoods, community hubs, and recreational areas to promote social interactions. The people who are still alive, who managed to make it through all the eons of terrible, I think we survived because we lived in community. I don't think that human beings are designed to be isolated or alone. The people whose DNA has continued coursing through our veins are the ones who are more community oriented. And whatever idiots decided to maximize profit and minimize comfort are ruining human beings and making our lives terrible. What do you think about that, Lane? What are your final thoughts on this topic?
That's a lot, but I do think it comes down to community, finding your people, whether that's in a suburb, exurb, or in a city, hopefully with some parks where you can touch grass. Absolutely makes sense to me that community is the bottom of the pyramid for our well-being.
Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
I think we're in a really dangerous time as far as that goes. Lane mentioned earlier that people are more transient. It's very usual that you might leave your hometown for work and then you might leave that town for another job. We are increasingly separated by not just location, but politics, and humans don't have as many friends. Adults have fewer friends now than they had 20 years ago. I think the role that architecture can play in that and interior design is a significant one. I suggest that we all try to build community with the people around us and seek out spaces that encourage that community and help us connect. Laura, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Lane for coming.
Thank you, Lane.
And sharing her incredible insights into architecture and community spaces. My final thought is referencing the No New Friends episode of our podcast. We do have a hard time in our society connecting with other people because, at least in America, we don't have a lot of unplanned run-ins. And that's how you make friends. I was thinking about even having a middle schooler. I don't see other parents anymore. I don't have morning drop-off. We don't run into each other in the hallway. I drop him off at the door from my car and then I drive away. I don't even know his teachers. It's all very strange. I do feel like we have to remember that we are natural beings. We come from nature. We need to create environments that feel natural. But sometimes I have this fantasy of living in space. And I remember in the movie, they made these rooms that had screens on them, and the screens were video of the ocean or natural wooded area so that people could feel safe and feel at home. And I feel like with the way pollution is going, we're probably going to have to start doing that. So, Lane, if someone is interested in incorporating biophilic design in their commercial space, how would they go about reaching you?
Yeah, you can reach out to my firm that I work for. It's called Fuse Architecture Studio. We have a contact us page at www.fuse-arch.com. That's FUSE-ARCH.com.
Awesome. And if somebody wants to find out about when Bitch and Sauce is on sale at Wheatsville, how would they do that?
Well, you need to get on the distribution list. We have to go shopping at Wheatsville together first.
Lane is my number one source for discounts on Bitch and Sauce, and I love her for it. Virginia, if people want to be in a small environment that's cozy, where they can laugh at comedy and see you on stage, how would they go about doing that?
You can find my schedule on my website, which is www.badinia.com. That's also my TikTok handle, and that's also my Instagram. There's a Facebook group called Vegan Costco, and vegans will post things that they found at Costco. It is a heartbreak of a group because that stuff is never in my Costco. The Costco stuff varies so much by location. I'm just going to say it's just a heartbreaker, guys. Don't do it. If you would like to reach out to the podcast, you can write us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. You can find our podcast promotion on Instagram at mysistersatherapist.com. If you want to hire us to promote Bitch and Sauce, Sunday Riley,
Waterloo,
Liquid Death,
Costco,
all Kirkland products, and produce, you can write us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. Laura, where can people find you on the internet, either professionally or personally?
If they want to develop a professional relationship with me, they can go to lauraryan.org. And if they live in the state of Texas, I can work with them. If you are interested in AI TikToks that I create to promote this podcast, you can find me on TikTok at I am Laura Ryan. And as always, if you like our podcast and you think it's great, please tell anybody you've ever met. Maybe someone that you met in an unplanned meeting at a Costco or potentially in a biophilic designed building.
Or a Swedish library. If you do like the podcast, we strongly encourage you to review it. Reviewing our podcast is the best way to help other people find it. And you can review us on Apple Podcasts, but you can also use Spotify or Audible. And we love you the same either way. Laura, would you like to share a review with us this week?
Yes, I would. This is from Audible, and the title is Titillating Stuff. As one of 4 kids, I always enjoy observing other sibling relationships, and these gals are the real thing. I also love the balance of humor and information in this podcast. I find myself thinking about what I've heard in the episodes long after they're over. I really appreciate the fact that these episodes can be squeezed in when I have a half hour to myself. All the stars for Laura and Virginia. Love, Allison. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. And an extra special thank you to our friend and super listener, Lane. If you're cool, we could have you on our podcast someday. If you're not cool, don't worry about it.
Don't contact us.
Well, that's extremely flattering. And thank you, ladies, for having me on. This was a fun time, or it's more fun than listening. So
that's true. She's a super listener. She's rounding Zach's corner areas, but
look out, Zach.
She hasn't quite gotten there.
In closing, I would like to invite all of us to meditate on the words of our spiritual founder, Billy Ray Valentine, as he said, "We can make it, baby."
Me and you.
Bye-bye.